Hey, everybody, welcome back to the show. Today, I have my buddy Sean Grabow here with me, and he's really been an investor for just a couple of years, but he's gone from kind of zero to about 100 deals a year, 8 to 10 deals a month. And we're going to talk today about lessons learned at scaling a business quickly. Professional real estate investors know that it's not really about the real estate. In fact, real estate is just a vehicle to freedom. A group of over 100 of the nation's leading real estate investors from across the country meet several times a year at the Investor Fuel Real Estate Mastermind to share ideas on how to strengthen each other's businesses, but also to come together as friends and build more fulfilling lives for all of those around us. On today's show, we're going to continue our conversation of fueling our businesses and fueling our lives. I'm glad you're here. Hey, Sean, welcome to the show.
Hey, Mike, thanks a lot for having me, man.
Yeah, glad to have you here. And, I've been coaching and mentoring people for a long time, been in the real estate space for a long time. And I love lessons where people came into, you came into a market cycle where people were already talking about 2 years ago how it was getting difficult. Like, oh, things aren't as easy as they used to be, or people are feeling the pressure. But then somebody like you comes in and just doesn't listen to all that because you don't have these preconceived notions and you just go in and crush it. So excited to kind of share those lessons today because the truth is, as you know, a lot of people's success is dependent upon what's between their ears, right? Like the mental side of, if you listen to all the naysayers, like you would never get started in real estate investing in any cycle. And you've kind of proven those folks wrong. So excited to talk about this. So maybe you could introduce yourself a little bit. Tell us about your background and kind of how you found your way here just 2 years ago.
Yeah, Mike. So I grew up in Michigan, moved out to California for 10 years. When I was out in California, I was ready for a change, ready to do something different. I didn't know exactly what that was going to be, but I had some success just kind of doing a couple live-in flips where I'd live in a house for 2 years and then sell it and then find another beat-up house, live in there for 2 years, fix it up and sell it. And when it came time to do a different career, real estate seemed like it would be a good transition. It was something where I kind of had a little bit of proof of concept. I know I enjoyed it. And from there I decided, I need to find a good market to move to. Didn't want to start off in California just because it seemed a little bit more limiting as far as the options I had. So kind of did some research, chose Columbus, Ohio, and I moved here in March of 2018. And since then, I had one company with a partner, and that lasted for about a year. And then about 8 years ago, broke off and started another company just by myself with an employee who I've been working with. And in the 8 months, we've been scaling and doing great.
Yeah. So that was a little over a year ago you broke off there.
A little less than a year, yeah.
Yeah. So why did you pick Columbus? So, I mean, sometimes people go into Midwest markets are kind of known for being good rental grade markets. Did it have something to do with it, or was it something else?
Yeah, well, there are a bunch of different factors. One was I grew up 5 hours from here, so I was kind of returning to where I had some roots. But then also I looked at just what seemed like a good market for buying long term, and Columbus has a growing population. The purchase price to rent, that ratio is pretty solid, and I knew there was some revitalization going on, but since I've landed here, I've realized there's a lot more revitalization going on. So it's just kind of all of those things, and I feel really good about the decision that I made.
Yeah. Cool. That's great. So let's talk. We want to kind of get into some lessons learned, and maybe we could start off by talking about exit strategies. So I know, you got in with the intention of keeping some rentals, and you and I talked before, initially you really didn't want to be a wholesaler, but I think you've kind of come maybe full circle a little bit there on the power of wholesaling. Maybe just kind of share some lessons learned about exit strategies and how that's shifted over time.
Yeah. So when I first started, I had no intention of wholesaling. It seemed like Oh man, I hate to say it, but it was almost like a little below me. Like I had a little bit of money saved up, and I thought I was just, gonna go off and start buying rentals. And now that as soon as I got started, I realized how foolish that was because I would have ran out of my money immediately. I don't know how to be a landlord. I didn't know the first thing. It's just, that's kind of what I assumed that people who wanted to get into real estate investing did is you went out and you bought properties. But I was lucky enough to get partnered up with somebody who wanted to wholesale. And from that, I immediately realized the power that that has and just all the benefits it's given me because, everything starts, whether you're a landlord or a rehabber or a developer, that all starts with finding the good deal. So,
Right.
and then just also wholesaling, I've been able to learn so many different facets of the real estate industry. So that's
Yeah.
been great. And even since I've started getting wholesaling down fairly well, I've started to kind of expand. Okay, now that I understand this, if I do want to hold on to some rentals, what's the best way to go about that? What neighborhoods do I want to be in? Same with rehabs. I'm not a good project manager. I don't have a construction background, but I've realized like I can partner up with people who do have those skills. So I've kind of started to dip my toes into rentals and flips and other things. But that's all been fueled from the wholesaling initially.
Yeah, wholesaling really is the foundation of like if you have that skill set, you have options, right? I mean, if you're only a wholesaler, like I've never really understood people that only they wholesale 100%, they rehab 100%, and I don't really know many people that keep rentals 100% because you got to have some kind of current cash flow to be able to fund your operations, right? So it's interesting. I think as I evolve, sounds like maybe as you too, you realize like especially if you're doing direct to seller marketing, you need to be flexible and kind of let the deal dictate what you do with it. Or your cash flow situation currently is going to dictate, like you said, you're going to run out of money if you try to keep them all as rentals. And you might have a cherry deal that, would be a good rehab maybe, and it's not worth wholesaling. But I think really wholesaling is that kind of foundation of the entire business.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I really agree.
Yeah, yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the power of networking. Is that something that was been? I know you're big into networking now. Has it always been that way, or is it something that you kind of picked up over time? How important that is?
I think it's something I've always been into. I've always been really driven by having good relationships with people, wanting to treat people like, or treating people like I want to be treated myself.
Yeah,
I didn't really realize the power and the value that it has in a business sense until I started really getting involved in the real estate community here in Columbus and just realizing how everybody knows everybody, everyone's paths are constantly crossing, and just the amount of opportunity that is opened up by legitimately just trying to help people and not having any motive for yourself, but just really putting yourself out there. It's been probably the biggest thing that I would attribute my success to has just been putting myself out there, not
yeah.
being afraid to just go and pound out real estate investing meetings and
Right.
yeah.
It's amazing when it's one of those things, and you're obviously a member of Investor Fuel, and that's one of the foundations we have is just giving, right? And it's amazing. And I didn't start off this way. I probably had a scarcity mindset for the first year or two I was in business, which is a long time ago now. But when you start to realize, because you kind of like you're small, a lot of us are isolated to just running our own business. You're not really talking to a lot of people if you're not networking. But then I found, it sounds like you understand this too, is when you just share and you're kind of open minded, like opportunities just come your way. I hate to say it, but there's so many people that are closed off and have a scarcity mindset that when you have an abundance mindset, you kind of stand out, and it just attracts people that might have eventually. I'm not saying you do it for the purpose of benefiting yourself, but it's like karma, right? When you put good stuff out there, just stuff, deals fall in your lap, or you get lucky more often, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And you really notice it with real estate too, because
Yeah,
there's, yeah, like you said, deals falling into your lap. People see you and see you helping them, or you've helped them enough times to where they get a sweet deal or something that's a little bit out of their comfort zone. They bring it to you and want to partner up. And
yeah.
yeah, it's been great.
Talk a little bit about partnering. So you said that word a couple of times now. Coach, we just talked about, when you put good things out there, things come your way. So partnership opportunities. And I think when you talk about rehabbing, it's not your strength. So you partner with people. And so talk a little bit about the kind of importance and power of partnering and JVing on deals and stuff like that to your business.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, it just allows me to do a lot more. And it also allows me to focus on the stuff that I'm best at, because
Yeah.
I'm pretty upfront about the stuff that I'm not good at all. And through trial and error, I've realized it, and it's been reinforced to me that I'm just really not good at some things. But that's fine, as long as, I recognize it and I refocus toward the stuff that I am good at. And the stuff that I'm not good at, like rehabs, project management, all that stuff, I find somebody who is good at it, and I bring, my value in the stuff that I'm really good at to them and to the partnership. And yeah, it just allows me to also, to, instead of wholesaling every deal, it allows me to hold on to a lot more stuff. It's going
Yeah.
to probably allow me to build my rental portfolio a lot faster. And yeah, it's just been really, I don't know, it's been great.
Yeah, that's great. It's an important part when you start to realize, like, I don't have to do everything myself. Like, you know, I can work with other people and we can get this done. And sometimes you might make a little less money. Sometimes it might cost you a little more if you work with, a contractor that's a little more expensive, but more trustworthy, whatever it might be. But you start to realize, like, this is not it's kind of a team sport, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it really helps you grow a lot too, because if you're working with somebody who's a lot more experienced than you, you're going to kind of get your hand held, and you're going to get walked through that process. I mean, just in the last year, I've learned so much about rehabs and, dealing with contractors and materials and all that stuff that I had no idea. And I would have probably miserably failed if I would have tried it on my own. I would have been, just my time would have got ate up. And I think in the long run, you probably, you might, I think in the long run, it definitely pays a lot more.
Yeah. 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 What's the cost of doing something? If you don't use, what happens is you like don't do stuff. Sometimes you stop doing stuff at all because you hate it. It's like, well, you can still make money doing it. You just have to do it a little differently. Right. And so I think if you try to be good at everything in this business, you're going to be good at almost nothing.
Absolutely.
So yeah. Yeah. So talk about the power of your team. Like, you started off, small. I know you built up a team here. And I think that's where a lot of other real estate investors kind of struggle, is really around scale. Like, you've scaled your business up, so you can't really afford to have a team unless you scale up. If you're doing a deal here and there, you can't have a team, but you've obviously chosen to scale. And then I know you care a lot about your team and view this as a team effort. Talk a little bit about kind of how that's impacted your business, I guess.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, I mean, like I can only do so much, and there are only some things I'm good at. So if I can find the best people who can help me where in the fields that I struggle in, then that's just going to help me grow and get better a lot faster. Obviously with wholesaling, you got to really take care of your people, because they don't necessarily realize that all of the expenses in marketing and time and just everything that goes into it. They just kind of see, what we're buying them for and what we're selling them for. So
Right.
I feel like, I really invest in people. I send my team to different trainings, like the John Martinez trainings for our acquisition people, and all of those different programs. And I feel like when you invest in people like that, you show them you care, like, whether it's, letting an employee stay at one of your rentals or something like that, it builds that friendship, it builds that loyalty, it makes it so that, they see it as more than just a job, and, they're really connected to it. If you're sharing, I think that's a big thing with me is, I never want to be the person who pays the least. I want to be the person who pays the most, but I'm going to expect a lot. And, as long as you're treating people with, the respect, you're going to get a lot more back from them. And it just creates a win-win for everybody. So.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. I think with, a lot of people have this fear of, if I train somebody, especially around acquisitions, what if I train somebody and they become my competitor? right? Any
Yeah.
thoughts on, have you thought, because it's a real thing, right?
Oh,
So it's
yeah.
like, there's this old kind of line is like, I can't remember exact, I'm going to totally screw it up trying to think of this from memory, but um, there's like a company and the CFO says, well, what if we train these people and they leave? And then the CEO says, well, what if we don't train them and they stay? It's like, you don't want that either. So there's a balance there. But, I used to be fearful of that. And then I said, well, look, what if they want to leave and go do their own thing? Maybe there's a way to partner with them and we kind of find some way to work together, or just, when you kind of shift from this kind of scarcity to abundance mindset, you can't let that hold you back. But what are your thoughts on that?
I definitely, you said at the beginning that you've transitioned more into the abundance mindset, and it's been the same thing with me as well. I definitely had that concern, and maybe even still have the concern a little bit, like, oh, if I give them the keys to the castle, then, they're going to run off and do it themselves. And especially when you're spending a lot of, time and energy investing in that person, there's no way you're not going to think that that's a possibility. But, I think it just goes back to, providing that really stable environment, having them, and they see the struggles as well, and they see the bad months, or, they see other people who've split off and done their own thing and haven't had the success. So, yeah. I mean, I don't think you can think too much. You can't worry about it too much, or else it's, just going to kind of limit you. But, it's something I think about, but, when it comes down to it, at the end of the day, I'm just going to treat them right. And, if they do decide to go off and do their own thing, I'm going to be grateful that for the time we had to work together, and I'm going to find out a way to, create win-win situations and partner up in the future.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. I think kind of that mentality and the kind of ability to JV and partner on stuff, it kind of goes hand in hand, because you're like, well, if you decide to go on your own, like let's be honest that is a possibility at some point that you might want to do that. And let's just kind of commit to each other that, we'll put everything in while we're together. And if you decide to go off on your own, like maybe there's some ways for us to work together even then, So, man, I think it's everybody's different, but I think there's a lot of acquisitions. I've had a lot of acquisitions people over the years, and many of them did not want to have to do all the stuff that I had to do as a business owner. When they kind of when you give people a peek behind the curtain, I mean, the back end of a real estate business is not sexy at all, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, salespeople they're good. I'm kind of a natural salesperson. That's where like my background is acquisitions, and that's what I'm kind of the best at. And I'm horrible at running the rest of the company. And I think a salesperson, really, they want to be on the phone. They want to be they're passionate about that. From my experience, most salespeople don't like doing the other stuff. And, if they decide to go off and try it and you handle that in a really respectful way, there's probably a good chance they're going to come back and want to work with you in the future.
Yeah. Yeah. So Shawn, from your lessons learned over the past couple of years and expanding pretty rapidly here in, again, what most would deem a more challenging market than in the past. And what's kind of your biggest piece or two of advice if somebody's listening to this right now and they're doing a deal here and there, but they really want to hit that scale point? What are some of the things that you've learned that you could kind of advise them on?
Well, as far as like the acquisition process, just to follow up like ferociously, like I've closed deals where I've, talked to people, or I've attempted to maybe 100 contacts, and people would have given up way longer, way before that. Persistence, surrounding yourself with good people, being open to, 50% of something's better than 0% of nothing.
Yeah.
See, that's a good question. Getting out there and exposing yourself, recognizing your weaknesses, trying, when I first got to town, I had way more time than I had things to do. So I would just find people on bigger pockets who were actually out there doing stuff, and just volunteer to, see if they needed, somebody to go shovel, 2 yards of dirt to fill in some divots in the yard, or, just whatever it took to be exposed to people who are where I wanted to be and who are doing the things that I wanted.
Yeah, that's good news. That's good. Yeah. Because it's easy you can't learn, and you can't buy any houses if you're sitting in your house with nothing to do.
You gotta put the time in. It's not easy. It's way Yeah, it's not easy, and just like anything, you got to work for it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Sean, you've been in Investor Fuel for a little while now. We actually have a meeting coming up here in the next week or so. Would you mind sharing just your experience so far? I know you've just been in for a short while, but what are your thoughts about the group overall?
Everybody's been really help. Everybody genuinely wants to see everyone else succeed, and really goes out of their way to answer questions and to connect and to kind of work through any problems or challenges you're facing. And then the other really cool thing is, there's so many different backgrounds within the group. You have people who are amazing with lead gen, or you have people who are amazing flippers. You have people who do all aspects of the industry. So you have access to everybody. The Facebook group is great. There's just so much activity going on there, and get answers to questions real quick. And the one meetup I've gotten to go to so far was excellent, meeting everyone face to face, and yeah, it's been a really good experience so far.
Awesome. I appreciate that. Shawn, thanks for sharing this information with good stuff. And I think one of the big things are, maybe you could share a thought on just scale, because a lot of people get in and if they are successful at doing a deal, they're usually here and there, they don't necessarily invest their money back into lead generation, and it just becomes kind of hobby. I mean, there's a lot of people in the real estate industry that do a deal and it's here and there, and they're kind of in hobby mode, and they just never are willing to kind of bet on the scale, because it is an investment, right? You got to invest in probably people, certainly your time, and probably lead gen. Maybe any kind of final thoughts on the kind of what it takes to scale and why people should make that commitment.
Yeah, just putting in the time. I've always just reinvested. I've always lived really frugally and just always tried to reinvest everything. I think that's been huge. I think really just a lot of the stuff I've been talking about, having good people around you, putting in the time, reinvesting the profits.
Yep. Yeah. And if you don't scale, the truth is, and not even when you scale, it's still, it's still hard work. Stuff happens that you didn't expect. Stuff gets a curveball out of left field or whatever. But if you don't scale, even if you are successful, like at best, you have a new job, right? You're kind of tied to that business because you're probably stuck doing almost everything yourself.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah. Cool. Well, Shawn, if folks wanted to learn more about you or connect in any way, where could they go?
Probably connecting with me on Facebook's the best way. Just search my name. And I'm always open to help out. I'm a complete open book. So any way I can ever add value to anybody, I'm very eager to do so.
Awesome. We'll add a link down in the show notes. So thanks again for being with us today. Looking forward to seeing you in Nashville here in another 10 days, I guess.
Yeah, really looking forward to it, Mike. Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. Everybody, hey, thanks for joining us on the show today. I hope you got some value out of this, especially if you are at a point where you need to make some changes to be able to scale your business up and turn it into a real business and not a hobby. So if you haven't yet, we'd love it if you subscribe to us on iTunes, Stitcher, Radio, Google Play, anywhere where you watch or listen to us, YouTube, any of those places. Of course, you can find all of our shows if you go to investorfuel.com, or if you go to flipparent.com, you can find all of our shows there too. So appreciate you a ton. We'll see you on the next show. Are you an active real estate investor? If so, and you want to latch on to the power of surrounding yourself with over 100 of the nation's leading real estate investors, all committed to building stronger businesses and living richer, fuller lives, you should jump on a call with us to learn more about Investor Fuel. Simply visit investorfuel.com to get started.